by the federal government to ensure that the bilateral air service agreement between Nigeria and Israel.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss the Nigerian youth as peace ambassador in the aftermath of the harsh NSAS protests.
Peace is a prerequisite for development, and with the estimation that the youth make up about 70% of Nigeria's teeming population, they are no doubt a potential force for peace and development.
Of course, the Nigerian youth manifested an aspect of their potential as a force to reckon with, considering the manner they mobilized and staged the recent harsh NSAS protests in an initially peaceful manner, as attested to by many Nigerians, until the protests were eventually hijacked by another section of the youth population who went on a looting spree and perpetrated wanton destruction of property.
The NSAS scenario was a clear indication of how the energies and potential of youth population can be deployed either positively or negatively, which of course is an eye-opener for the Nigerian society, especially the political class, not to ignore the potential of the youth population, but to productively channel their energies for development.
That realization, no doubt, has informed ongoing efforts by the federal and state governments to engage the youth in productive dialogue as the nation continues to count the cost of the harsh NSAS protests. The Lagos state government alone says it will require more than ₦1 trillion to fix the colossal damage of public and private property during the recent social unrest. And that is just the cost for reconstruction in one state alone.
And of course, Kingsley, most states are still counting their losses. Little wonder on the maiden edition of the Nigeria's National Youth Day yesterday. The Minister of Youth and Sports Development, Sunday Diary, said the occasion, which the government has approved for the first day of November annually, should be used to reflect, take stock, and chart a new youth action plan that tackles the issues that confront Nigeria's teeming youth population.
Now, a former American president, Franklin Roosevelt, once said, "We cannot always build the future for our youth, but we can build our youth for the future." What then is required to build our youth for the future and enlist them as peace ambassadors going forward? We shall find out in the course of the program today. My name is Kingsley Osadolo, and I welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you as always live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We're broadcasting from our nation's capital, Abuja.
And I am Yusuf Nadab Usman. The morning news comes in a moment, as well as other complementary segments. Later, Elizabeth Muri is here for the morning news. Good morning, Elizabeth.
Good morning, Nadabo and Kingsley, and here is the morning news. President Muhammad Buhari has formally recognized and celebrated the accomplishments of some youth innovators in Nigeria, including a 20-year-old student of Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, Usman Dalhatu, who built a portable automatic ventilator to help people with breathing problems. Dalhatu was among the 5 youth innovators in the different fields showcased by the Federal Minister of Youth and Sports Development at the maiden National Youth Day celebration yesterday, which also coincided with the African Youth Day celebration. President Buhari, who was represented by the FCT Minister, congratulated the young innovators for making the nation proud, assuring them that his government will continue to invest in entrepreneurship and career development. 4 other youth innovators received cash donations of 500,000 naira each from the federal government. President Muhammad Buhari Sunday in Abuja appealed to Nigerian youths to participate in meaningful discussions with government aimed at comprehensive reforms to end all forms of police brutality against Nigerians. A statement by the Senior Special Assistant to the President of Media and Publicity, Garba Shehu, indicates that the President, in a message to the maiden National Youth Day celebration, acknowledged that the pleas of Nigerian youths have been heard by his administration. The President said the federal government now wants to hear concrete and practical ideas from the youths while acknowledging the constitutional right to peaceful protests. President Buhari also used the occasion to express his strong opposition to the wrongful use and imposition of violent force against any innocent law-abiding persons, particularly young people. Describing Nigerian youths as agents for social change, economic growth and sustainable development, President Buhari said his administration has established not fewer than 25 initiatives aimed at empowering youths across the country. Meanwhile, Information and Culture Minister Lai Mohammed has described the attack on TV Continental in the wake of the NSAS protest in Lagos as a malicious attack against free speech and democracy. The minister stated this in Lagos while on a solidarity visit to the organization.
Clearly, those who came here came with a purpose. It was to shut down the voice of reason. It was to shut down and attack the enviable free press we've enjoyed so far. But whoever attacks free press is also attacking democracy, because there can be no democracy without a robust and vibrant free press. And this is why this attack must be condemned without any reservation. And there's a direct link between fake news, the social media, and what happened here. But once again, we would not, as a government, be cowed by anybody in our determination to ensure there's a responsible use of the social media.
Still on the aftermath, the Benue State government has debunked reports on some social media that COVID-19 palliative items meant to be given to the poorest of the poor were sold to traders in Kano State. Commissioner for Information, Culture and Tourism, Gunan Adinge, says it is part of the issues resolved by the State Executive Council.
It's a matter that when the COVID distribution were given, the committee had met and decided that some of the market people and traders that were also affected from not being able to open their stores for a long time should be beneficiaries of these materials. And so the market association was invited when they were sharing palliatives, and some palliatives were also shared to them.
So somehow, some of them sold these palliatives instead of using them, and according to them, they needed the money that time more than the palliatives.
Into other matters, Nigerian Christian pilgrims will participate in the 2020 Christian pilgrimage to Israel scheduled for December this year. This followed the approval of the federal government after due consideration.
Plans are on the way by the federal government to ensure that the bilateral air service agreement between Nigeria and Israel is activated so that Nigerian airline can lift our pilgrims directly from Nigeria to the state of Israel. This will afford the intending pilgrims the opportunity to understand the real essence of pilgrimage and sport in them the spirit of patriotism.
Into COVID-19 update, the Nigeria Center for Disease Control has announced 111 new cases of COVID-19 in 7 states and the FCT. These 111 new cases increased the number of confirmed COVID-19 cases in Nigeria to 62,964. Among the new cases, Lagos has 49, FCT 30, 11 Rivers, 10 in Plateau. Ogun has 4, Kaduna and Oyo states recorded 3 new cases each, while Osun recorded just a case. On the states chart, Lagos remains top with 21,287 cases. Next is the FCT with 6,118, while Plateau trails with 3,650 total cases. Currently, there are 3,028 active cases nationwide, as 58,790 recovered patients have been discharged, with the death toll now 1,146. And that's the morning news. The program continues with Kingsley and Nadabo after this break. To stay with us.
The recent genuine concerns and agitations by Nigerians about the excessive use of force and, in some cases, extrajudicial killings and wrongful conduct by men of the Nigerian police force. The disbanding of SARS is only the first step in our commitment to extensive police reform in order to ensure that the primary duty of the police and other law enforcement agencies remains the protection of lives and livelihoods of our people. We will also ensure that all those responsible for misconduct or wrongful acts are brought to justice. We also deeply regret the loss of life of the young man in Oyo State during the recent demonstrations. I have directed that the circumstances of his death should be thoroughly investigated. Meanwhile, it is important to recognize that the vast majority of men and women of the police force are hardworking and diligent in performing their duties. The few bad eggs should not be allowed to tarnish the image and reputation of the force.
Mr. President said the youth of this country have spoken, and he has heard, and he has since gone to work for the youth of our country, not just as a president, but even as a father of the younger generation.
The real Nigerian youth is a patriot, not a tool of destabilization.
Mr. President made an appeal to the Nigerian youth that these protests, wherever held, should be done in a peaceful manner. The Nigerian youth should be on their guard to make sure that elements that will infiltrate and distract them from the very purpose of their protest should be prevented from doing so.
Listen to the voice of reason.
Do you know that social media is not good or bad, and that it is you who is using it that is either good or bad? Bad social media users spread rumors and fake news without verification. But good social media users stop, verify the information, and reflect before sharing it. Now, are you a good social media user? Stop the spread of fake news. Verify the authenticity of your source for a better Nigeria.
This message is from the National Orientation Agency.
No panic to buy fuel or black market. NMPC go bring fuel for all motorists.
NMPC say them get fuel jabrata for ground. So therefore, no buy black market, no do panic buying, and no fuel day we go round.
NMPC, we touch your lives in many positive ways.
You're still watching Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Now it's time for business news, and here is our correspondent, Chimaobi Walter Nanji.
In its bid to provide a robust website to facilitate stakeholders' engagement on social protection, the Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning, in partnership with some stakeholders, have completed the development of a web application resource for members of the Social Protection Community of Practice, COP. The website would serve as a resource for greater collaboration and networking amongst members of the Social Protection Community of Practice. It would also function as an interactive repository system for sharing and storing learning resources on social protection. Meanwhile, the capital market closed bullish on the last trading day of the month of October, appreciating by 3.71%. Some stakeholders expect that the capital market will pick more momentum in the coming weeks.
The markets will remain stable, except we have any major shock, affecting the economy, such as the crisis that we just saw. And I'm happy that it was contained, very quickly.
With business news, I'm Chimobi Walter Naji.
Well, many thanks, Walter, for the business package. Next on the program is the newspaper review.
Our newspaper reviewer, Bayo Tobe, is here with us this morning. Bayo, good morning and welcome.
Thank you, Kinsley. Good morning. Good morning, Yusuf.
Good morning.
Good morning, Nigeria.
I hope you had a pleasant weekend.
Yes, very restful one.
All right, you look fresh, huh?
Thank you.
All right, so let's kick off with the window page of the Punch newspaper. Above the nameplate says Discos begin implementation of revised electricity tariff. That's on page 26 in greater detail. Deplorable roads, that's the kicker. Senate hits Fashola for blaming National Assembly. That's on page 7. It's wrong to brutalize peaceful protesters, says Buhari. Federal government to spend 269.38 billion naira on 6 million free meters. Details are on page 25. And 2 earpieces, foreign reserves dropped to $35.69 billion in October. And 8 Supreme Court judges swearing in suffers delay after Senate confirmation, page 43. 7-month strike lingers as ASU and government fight over payment platform. With 2 riders, government says 57,000 out of 71,700 lecturers in Nigeria already on IPPIS. And FG only paying those lecturers intimidated to join government's platform. That's according to the ASU. And then you see the composite photographs there on the front page of the Punch newspaper, saying members of the #EndSARS movement embossing their sign at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja, on Sunday. And below that you have other headlines. It says 9 Nigerian Americans contesting Tuesday's U.S. elections, page 43. And on page 44, setup and lawyers drag NBC before court over TV stations' fines. And northern governors will fund studies on protests. That's according to Tambuwal, governor of Sokoto State. Soldier dies attempting to rescue Katsina nursing mother. And Boko Haram kills 7 civilian JTF hunters and 5 others in Borno.
Well, many thanks, Kinsley. Here on the Daily Trust, we have some few stories here, beginning with the one just below the masthead, which says Federal Government and ASU, enough is enough. That's the front page comment of this very newspaper. The lead story is on electricity. It says consumers kick as discos resume tariff hike. It has 4 riders there, one of which is US meters first. Tariff segmentation won't work, Consumers Network says. We are watching compliance, according to Labour. And then Genco's grown over low energy use. Below on the page, we have state of the road. Senate fires back at Fashola. That's going to be on page 4. And meet 9 Nigerians running in the United States elections. That's going to be on page 35. And on page 8, Buhari to NSAS protesters. Let's talk. Just like in the other newspaper, of course, there is this bold picture of NSAS members engraving the hashtag at Nnamdi International Airport in Abuja yesterday. Bayo?
Well, let's start with the story about the metering. You recall that when the Labour and Nigeria Labour Congress and TUC gave ultimatum to go on strike over increase in tariff and petroleum pump price, there was an agreement about suspending the electricity tariff for a period. that period has lapsed, and that is why you are seeing the reaction there now. As at last Friday, the National Metering Program, which was supposed to entail distribution of 6 million meters across the country, was started in some states, Kano, Kaduna, and Eko and Ikeja distribution companies. So far, Ikeja distribution company has distributed about 106,000 prepaid meters to customers in this jurisdiction. This is under the National Mass Metering Program. Ikeja Electricity says that beneficiaries will not be required to pay upfront for installation. However, modalities of payments will be told to the distributors subsequently. But the condition now is that the Labour is now saying that they are watching to see if the agreement they reached with the federal government team during the time they threatened to go on strike will be complied with. On the story about U.S. election, well, citizens of the U.S. have to go to the polls tomorrow, and the interesting is that most people know of two dominant candidates: President Donald Trump, who is seeking re-election on the ticket of the Republican Party, and former Vice President Joe Biden, who is seeking election on the Democratic Party. But there are other political parties in the United States election. There is the party, Libertarian Party. Its candidate is Joe Johansson, and there is the Green Party, which is led by another man, Kanye West. There's an independent candidate who is also running in the race. So far, it is expected that about 91 million voters are required to cast their votes tomorrow. Already, a substantial part of those have already voted. And from all indications, there are 9 Nigerians who will be contesting in various positions in the elections. Apart from the presidential ticket, there are 11 governorship seats that are at stake, 435 seats in the House of Representatives, as well as 35 seats in the Senate of the United States that are to be contested. Our competitors, 9 of them, are contesting across several states and counties across the United States. We wish them all the best.
Yeah, sure.
Talking about NSAS now, Archbishop of Abuja, Ignatius Kegama, says that NSAS protest has become a reiteration of the message that the Catholic bishop have long emphasized upon. That is the challenge to stop corruption. The bishop expressed hope that it will now awaken the political will in our leaders for everyone to do something critically about corruption. And the Archbishop also has advice for the youth. He urged the youth to be very peaceful, stressing that force won't bring any peace. And he said, for all of us, let us use the little time we have in this world to live peacefully, embrace ourselves, and embrace peace. He ended with a beatitude. He says, blessed are the people, the peacemakers, for they are the children of God. So, and it tallies with the indication by the president that, yes, NSAS protests, we have had you come, let us dialogue. But the challenge now is that they have an amorphous organization. They say they don't have leaders. I don't know how they are going to designate their leaders now to come forward for discussion. Meanwhile, the Inspector General of Police over the weekend said the death toll in the NSAS process is now 73, including 22 policemen. The Inspector General of Police, who gave the details, said the fatalities affected officers and men of the force specifically. He says he declared, while meeting with 36 commissioners of police across the country, that 71 public warehouses, 248 private ones were looted in 13 states. 205 critical national and security assets and corporate facilities were either vandalized, destroyed, or burnt. 10 firearms were stolen from police stations, and 1 locally made pistol were recovered from NSAS protesters. 1,596 suspects have been arrested so far. Lagos had the highest, 520, followed by Plateau, 376. FCT had 210, and Kwara had 142. Already 1,117 have been charged to court. He appealed to policemen to return to their beats now and said that they should, however, not wait to be assaulted. They should defend themselves if they are attacked. The Inspector General of Police also used the occasion to comment on the Amnesty International report, which said Nigerian army and the police killed 12 protesters. The Inspector General of Police says it is untrue and it is contrary to empirical evidence. He says the police were professional and exercised maximum restraint. But Amnesty did not report about any of the 22 police persons that were killed extrajudicially. And another contrasting development, a Nigerian police officer, Catherine Ogoji, serving in the multidimensional integrated stabilization mission, has been nominated as the UN Woman Police of the Year, and she's to be given an award for the year 2020. She is on assignment in Mali. And this brings to the fore the wonderful services the police sometimes render. When they go on international services, UN missions, AU missions, ECOWAS missions, Nigerian police are among the best that can hold their mettle. But one begins to wonder, like prophets, they are not honored at home.
Well, issues always come up, and that has to do with the enabling environment in which they operate and the conditions and colleagues with whom they work when they're usually on these peace assignments. There's no question about that Nigerian police officers usually earn a great deal of recognition amongst their peers elsewhere around the world. And the challenge, therefore, would be what you see outside, try and replicate it back home. Not just for the police officers who are on these assignments, but also for the political leadership at all levels to say, okay, what is it that is done right when they are on these peace assignments? And how can we replicate those same things right here, back home? And it doesn't appear to be the case that, I'm not aware, Bayo, that in the various peacekeeping operations that Nigerian police officers have been reprimanded or otherwise sanctioned for brutality against persons in the environment where they are serving. No. I have no such recollection. I do know that some UN peace officers, peacekeeping officers, particularly the military from other countries, have been sanctioned for sexual offenses in the Congo and elsewhere, but none of the Nigerian police officers. So what makes it difficult to replicate such behavior back home? To say, listen, treat your citizens with a great deal of decency. The argument always was there was a colonial hangover in terms of attitude and orientation, which should now be cured by the new Police Act 2020 that incorporates the human rights element in policing.
And secondly, I think personally, Bayo and Kingsley, I think personally the environment you mentioned about is very key. That implies to almost every other thing Nigerians do outside Nigeria. You know, wherever you find them around the world, you find them, excelling, doing the best, bringing out the best, and being the best they can be. But the environment here at home seems to be where the problem is. And I think that can be connected to the NSAS issue because they are yearning to have things done for themselves. They are yearning to have progress and development. And also the environment seems not to be so conducive for them. I think that's where the eye should be.
I think we should also look at the programs. From the cadet officer upward, you have